Welcome to the Mindset Recruiting Podcast. I'm Alex Rojas, your talent advisor and host. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about a serious topic here because this affects my colleagues, my community, my industry. It's all about the devastation that the talent acquisition industry has experienced in the job marketplace. This has been a trend now that is going on almost 2 years that we have been experiencing. And if you're a recruiter who is in between jobs, meaning you've been laid off or furloughed, or you're a recruiter who's a contractor whose contract assignment ended and you're in between contract gigs and you're looking, or if you're a recruiter and know your colleagues, friends that have been laid off, that are looking for jobs and they're being challenged, I want you to stick around in this episode because I'm going to give you some facts here. I want to make sure that you're educated on what's happening within the industry and how the economy is affecting the talent acquisition industry. And I'm going to give you 4 reasons why the talent acquisition industry has been devastated. And I want to make sure that you stick around to the end of the episode because I want to make sure that you understand what options you have available. How are you going to make some pivots? What is your next move? Let's discuss. So before we dive into the 4 reasons on why the job market has been devastated within talent acquisition, we have to understand what is going on in the economy and specifically what is the state of talent acquisition, the industry as a whole. And so understanding why it's so competitive in the marketplace and why it seems like it's impossible if you're a recruiter looking for your next assignment, why it's so challenging and why it's so difficult. You have to look at the numbers, and the numbers tells us that within the United States, we have 1 million recruiters, approximately 1 million recruiters. Now, data will show you, if you go Google search or ChatGPT search it, that it's going to be somewhere 300,000-400,000 recruiters, but that's not the case. If you go on LinkedIn and do job title searches for recruiters, you're going to see about 1 million recruiters that are going to populate. It's actually closer to 3 million globally. Now, the other piece of layer that you want to peel back and look at is what is the supply of the demand of the job market. So how many jobs are actually posted out there that are specifically catered towards recruiters? LinkedIn has about 5,000 jobs that are posted. If you go on Indeed, it's approximately the same. Google Jobs is actually going to be a lot less than that. But that's the reality right now where we are at midpoint in 2024 is that 5,000 jobs are out there. And you think about it, most of those jobs are going to be staffing agency related, which means they pay less when it comes to base salaries and there are more incentives tied into it. So what has happened? In 2020, pre-pandemic, the marketplace was stable, it was neutralized, and if you were a recruiter and you were interested in exploring opportunities, you could do that. You can land different opportunities and actually increase your compensation or increase your rate. Now, what happened in 2022, post-pandemic, we went through that hiring frenzy. New recruiters came into the marketplace, and there has been a market saturation. It is flooded. There's too many recruiters out there in the marketplace. So what does that mean for us today? What is going to happen over the next couple of years? But how are we going to even end the year 2024? Let's look at some data charts. I want to provide you some data, some graphs that are going to be U.S. labor centric here. So right now, when we look at the totality of the marketplace and the workforce within the U.S., we're talking about 160 million workers. And so if we look at the unemployment rate hasn't fluctuated too much. It's been pretty consistent. The level of jobs that have been added month to month has been somewhere between 200,000 to 300,000, and that's over a period of 12 months, 18 months. But now if you look at the job openings, you can see the decline in the job openings. We were once at 11 million. Now we're creeping down below 8 million. It's at the lowest mark it's been in quite some time. So as those job openings continue to lowering and declining, and you can see this, how it affects it by sector, What does that mean for us? For us as recruiters means there's less jobs to fill, less of a demand for recruiters, and maybe that's where the dilution and the watering down of talent acquisition teams within companies is happening right now. So are we at the point right now, if you're a recruiter, are you thinking about jumping ship? Are you going to pivot? Or are you going to transition out of recruiting altogether? These are important questions to ask yourself. Or are you going to hang on tight here and make sure that you're going to ride this thing out? Because this could be a wave that could last 3 months, 6 months, or year and a half. We just don't know. But let's look at the data. Let's look at the reasons and show you what you need to be aware of. Okay, so let's dig into the 4 reasons on why talent acquisition industry has been impacted and why recruiters are experiencing this devastation. And I want to use that word pretty harshly here, but it is devastating that the recruiters are scrambling around right now, just trying to find their next gig, trying to find their next job. So these are the 4 reasons. Reason number 1 is there's economic uncertainty across the board, whether it's just within the US or on a global scale. The fluctuations within the economy has been all over the place, and we've been experiencing now that for the last couple of years. Now you can dig into this a little bit further and you can look at the inflation. Inflation has been the hot topic, it seems like, for the last couple of years, and we've seen it take all the way and peak up to about 9%, and now it's peaked down to 3%, 4%, somewhere around there. Same thing with interest rates. Interest rates have been impacted. Now it seems like we're kind of getting to a steady place, but it's been pretty erratic. The fluctuations in it have been pretty dramatic for us. There has been market unpredictability. There's been no stability in our marketplace. Probably the only area that I would say is that the Dow, the New York Stock Exchange, when it comes to that, there has been some predictability and actually some success, but it does not seem to be impacting the decisions that a lot of companies are making out there. And the companies, the decisions that companies are making are really hiring freezes. There's a lot of hiring freezes. There's a slowdown in hiring that has happened. We've gone through these spurts of layoffs, but for the most part, there's a freeze right now and sort of a pause that companies are doing right now. Government spending is out of control, and so as government spending is out of control, or maybe there's reallocation as far as government budget, that also impacts companies, especially government contracting organizations. So economic uncertainty, number 1. Number 2, technology advancements. That's right. We know that for the past 18 months, artificial intelligence and ChatGPT, the frenzy is on. The products are out. The tools are being rolled out. Companies are being bombarded to absorb AI, to understand it, to make sense of it. What is happening right here? And so that's going to be a continuation of the advancements that we're going to see here. And so what's going to happen is a lot of companies right now are making budget reallocations in 24. They want to make sure that they're allocating enough budgets to absorb this new technology that is coming in, which means there has to be new investments to take place. They have to look at their infrastructure. They have to look at the totality of their portfolio, their technology stack, and making sure they can allot some money or get rid of some tools that have not been working, that have become obsolete. And this is where automation tools becomes a big factor into this. Automation tools are a quick win for corporate America. It's the area that they can say, hey, where can we optimize? Where can we make ourselves much more efficient and productive? And then finally, through technology advancements, there's a refining happening within the workforce roles. What kind of role do you play as a recruiter? And how equipped is your ability, your skill sets, and your capabilities to adapt to some of these technology advances? So if you're a recruiter that's not keeping up with the times, keeping up with the technology, you could be at risk. Number 3, unstable job market. That's right, the layoffs and the downsizings, even though it feels like from a media perspective, you don't hear all the big headlines, Microsoft laying tens of thousands of people, the big companies that are doing all those layoffs. You're not hearing that, but what is happening is there are hundreds of people being laid off, every day, company A, company B, company C, right? So there's still those layoffs and that downsizing happening, but it's not happening at the magnitude. And so it's kind of a slow trickle effect that's happening week to week, month to month throughout the year. So what that also means is during those layoffs, there's backfill opportunities become very selective. There's selective hiring going on right now. And the reason why there's selective hiring going on in the marketplace is because there's a saturation of recruiters. And so as the marketplace is saturated with recruiters, there's a low demand to hire new recruiters to bring them on board. Because now if you lay off, a company lays off one or two recruiters or doesn't renew a contract for a recruiter, somebody on that team can absorb it because maybe there's some efficiencies. The company business portfolio isn't doing that well anymore. And then the other area as far as the job market and why it's unstable is there's been a correction in the compensation when it comes to recruiters. At a certain point, a couple of years ago, recruiters were demanding high dollar value. That has taken an adjustment, and I would say that some of those adjustments can range on the low end, 10%, on the high end, up to 30%, adjusting compensation expectations. And the fourth reason why talent acquisition industry has been devastated when it comes to the job market is that there are complex work dynamics. That's right. Do I work in office 5 days a week? Do you offer a hybrid role? Why can't I continue telecommuting? I'm used to doing that, especially recruiters in corporate America, typically accustomed to telecommuting. But that is a big factor out there. The niche roles of you as a recruiter are now being limited. I mean, even the sourcing aspects of it. If you're a sourcer and you're not a full life cycle recruiter, a sourcer might be squeezed out of that role. And even researchers or coordinators or junior mid-level recruiters, staffing managers, directors. If you're a director, if you're in a leadership management role and you've lost your job, it's going to be a lot more difficult and challenging to find your next gig, which means you are easily replaceable. You can be replaced by somebody else, and maybe your position goes away. And are you willing to go from a director to a full life cycle recruiter just to make ends meet? Another complexity about the work dynamics is that recruiters are not engaged, especially if we look at the Gen Zers and the millennials. We're talking about, we've heard that term, quiet quitting. That means the recruiters are working, but they're not giving it their all. They're giving it subpar. They're giving mediocre engagement out there. And that is affecting the team dynamics. But ultimately, one of the biggest complexities when it comes to the working dynamics has to do with recruiters' inability to influence leadership, to influence change within the company. The value of a recruiting organization and talent acquisition varies based on the leadership and how much value they see. And it also varies based on human resources, because a lot of times human resources oversees talent acquisition. And talent acquisition has always been that stepbrother or stepsister when it comes to human resources. And so do recruiters have a seat at the table to influence or to impact strategy decisions? And I would say no, that's not out there right now. Recruiters right now are in the order-taking business, and they're just buckling up, and they just want to hang tight to see what happens in the marketplace. And that's what we're waiting around for, to see what's going to happen the remainder of 2024. As I give you my final thoughts on this episode, I think the one thing that's been consistent out there is that there's a lot of fear for recruiters of losing their jobs. Companies are not performing well. And we as recruiters have such a good pulse on a company, because when job requisitions aren't opening and hiring is not happening, we already know. We already know before everybody else. And we already know when a company gets into trouble. We know when the writing is on the wall. But a lot of times, what do we do as recruiters? We hunker down. We lay low, especially in this economy. We ride the wave, right? We wait for the wheels to fall off until it's inevitable when a company comes up and tells you your position's going away or your contract is ended and it's not going to be renewed. Anyone can become a recruiter. This is the reality of today. The recruiter profession has become so watered down, and especially over the last few years when we had that surge of new recruiters coming in, anybody can be a full life cycle recruiter. The ramp up time now is just 2-3 months before you become somewhat operable. So specializing in a specific area, in a specific industry or a specific niche becomes that much more important. But also your ability to network within the talent acquisition community also becomes important. And it's dismal right now. Recruiters just are struggling right now to how to network or how to help each other out. So if you're a entry level to junior recruiter, you're probably in a better position right now. You have options to learn, to grow, and to kind of move up that scale where you're not impacting, your salary's not impacting those companies. But if you're a mid-level, senior level, somewhere in the 10 to 15 year mark as far as experience goes, you're going to be pretty positioned nicely as well. You're going to have some stability, and as long as your company's performing well, you stay put, you don't have to go anywhere. Now, some of the real seasoned recruiters, and I would consider anybody that's really seasoned, is going to be 15 plus to 30 years of experience. Now, if the company's underperforming, you're probably expensive and you're susceptible to getting hit on that, right? You are vulnerable as a seasoned recruiter. And so this is where really seasoned recruiters right now, especially Gen X recruiters that are out there that are going on that 25, 30 year mark, myself included, has to figure out a way to niche up, to bring in that value that is 5x, 10x better than the junior, the mid-level recruiter, the senior recruiter, and all they do is full life cycle recruiting. What value do you bring? What set of skill sets are you able to offer? What's going to happen heading into 2025? Will there be a surge, right? Is the AI integration sort of season, how long is that going to happen? When is that AI integration going to be fully operable in 2025? But all we know is for the next 6 months, for the remainder of 2024, the recruiting industry is going to be at limbo and it's going to be hurting. And so you have to do everything you can to stay aware, be educated, take advantage of the opportunities that are there, have some flexibility, and more importantly, look out for your colleagues, look out for your friends within the industry. I hope this episode was informative. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. It helps the podcast grow. And remember, until next time, it's all about the mindset.